As part of the American Cities Climate Challenge, we partnered with OUC and the Science Center to bring the Orlando Tiny Greenhouse today. Visitors have an opportunity to engage in a lot of cool interactive features that will be guiding them on how to save money and reduce their environmental impact. Even though this technology has evolved, not everybody can afford EV or solar right now, so there's a lot of other great highlights of low-cost and no-cost opportunities to save residents money that you'll learn about when you visit the home. And the greenhouse is on wheels, so we're going to be able to take it around the community and have people enjoy it and learn from it in various different areas of our community.
Trailing Thoughts from Bumby Path. This is such a friendly neighborhood because people have been aggressively waving at me a lot today. What is that sound I keep hearing behind me? Oh, I'm dragging a child's kite. How long have I been dragging that for? And why didn't any of these nice people tell me?
This song hits home for me. You see a lot of violence outside and you get used to it after a while.
For the past 4 weeks, we have been teaching the kids about telling their own story. You know, they listen to music all the time and they don't recognize that a lot of these artists and stuff like that they're really just telling their own story through lyrical pieces.
Our goal each and every day is to get every single young king to tap into his ability and his voice, to constantly allow them to, feel more comfortable even in those spaces that might not be as safe, but to be brave and to speak up for those things that they know they need to vocalize.
So I really want them to find their internal value, find things that they're passionate about through this program.
And that's what MBK is all about, is we come together and we're trying to just help coach them along through their processes to make sure that partnerships like this and others, that they'll be safe enough to be able to say, oh, I can do something that I've never done before.
What do you know about Dog Walker Watch?
I think it's a great program where dog walkers like me who are out and about in their neighborhood every day. They're the eyes and ears of the neighborhood, providing an extra set of eyes to the police. If you see something, say something.
It absolutely makes a difference because it will weed out the crime because they know that we're saying hello and greeting and that we've made eye contact and that I see you.
It's easy. You're going to walk your dog anyway. You're going to say hello to your neighbors anyway. You're going to be walking through on a daily basis, so it's just important to contribute back to your community.
Good afternoon and welcome to the January 8, 2024 meeting of the Orlando City Council. We're going to begin today's proceedings with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance offered and then led by Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. If we can bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, I want to start by reminding us all of Dr. King's powerful words. The time is always right to do what is right. In these times of uncertainty and change, both here in Orlando, the United States, and I say across the world. Let this timeless truth guide us, dear Lord. We also pray for wisdom to uphold the values of equity and inclusion that Dr. King championed. Grant us the courage to confront injustice and the strength to effect positive change in our community. Please help us to see beyond our differences and find unity in our shared humanity. Lord, we seek your guidance in fostering a world where each person is judged not by superficial labels, but God, as Dr. King dreamed, by the content of our character, a world where every voice is heard, every dream is given a chance to flourish. Oh, Father, in the spirit of Dr. King's enduring legacy, let us remember his call to action. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? This question echoes through the decades, urging us all to look beyond ourselves and to serve our community with love and humanity. Let us all ponder, what are we doing for others? And for a moment, let us reflect on who we understand to be the other and find community in all our beautiful differences. God, we ask that you give us the resolution to be beacons of hope and a force for good in a world that often feels divided. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that, as Dr. King eloquently stated. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Let us be that light. Let our light and love shine brightly here in the city of Orlando and in every corner of the world. Lord, inspire us to walk in Dr. King's footsteps, to fight for what is just, to speak for those who have been silenced, to stand firm in the face of adversity. Let us not be swayed by the winds of complacency or the storms of division, but let us move forward with unwavering resolve, unshakable faith in our mission as a city. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at the times of challenge and controversy. So, dear Lord, we ask you to stand with us today as we make decisions that will impact others. We ask us to stand together in unity in your dear Lord's name, Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's call the meeting to order. Would you call the roll and make a determination of a quorum, please?
Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz? Here. Commissioner Stewart?
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan? Here. Commissioner Hill?
Here.
Commissioner Burns?
Here.
Mayor Dyer?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum with all members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So, first item of business is the agenda review and city council meeting minutes of December 11th,
So moved.
2023. Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Okay, awards, presentations, and recognitions. We have one. And this afternoon, I want to start out by acknowledging the work of our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission that started already this week, although they've been working for about, I'd say 11 months on the 2 weeks that we're going to have over the course of the next several days. Last night we had our vigil and march to First Methodist Church for the Interfaith Multicultural Service, which was well attended and on time, exactly about 40 minutes. The bishop kept his remarks very on point, but very timely as well. And think that was extremely well done. So if you want more information, there are a lot of events, but you can go to orlando.gov/MLK. And I do have a proclamation or resolution that I want to read, but I want to ask Marcia to be a little more descriptive than I've been.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Commissioners, members of our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, also our MLK Commission sponsors, some of them are here, and partners, and of course, colleagues and everyone who is here today in the chamber, as well as those that are watching remotely. Today, Mayor Dyer and our City Council would like to thank and acknowledge the Mayor's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, all of its members, for their dedicated service and hard work to recognize the legacy of Dr. King and its value, continuous value in our city. Most of our 2024 MLK Commission members, which I think, am I supposed to press a button, Ed? Which we have a roster of those members that we'd like to share with everyone. Thank you, Ed. So that everyone knows who is serving on the commission. It's a robust group of city leaders that are actively involved, as Mayor Dyer said, most of the year. And we have most of them here in the chamber, and I'd like to ask them, along with our city staff that helps to facilitate the Dr. King Commission's activities, I'd like to thank them, first of all, for their service and commitment to our city, and also ask you to stand for a moment to be recognized as your names are on the screen, including our staff. Each member of the Mayor's MLK Commission, led by our chair, Brandy Han, is committed to the Commission's mission, which our city believes in and our city tries to live by, and we try to aspire to live by this every day, which is to champion Dr. King's legacy of service, equality, justice, peace, respect, and inclusion for all. As Dr. King once said, and I think Commissioner Hill just also quoted, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Our special thanks to our MLK Commission's outstanding sponsors. As I mentioned, many of them are here as well today, and many of them serve on the commission. We appreciate their commitment to making the MLK Commission's mission and purpose a reality in their companies and also throughout our city. And to our MLK partners who are helping to produce many of the events, they join us in presenting community events to commemorate Dr. King's holiday, which will be on January 15th, next Monday. We appreciate your commitment as well. I hope that you will thank each of our partners, and I think I need to share who our sponsors are. There they are, our outstanding sponsors. If you would see the screens in up front, you'll see that we have a variety of outstanding sponsors, and again, many of them are represented on the commission. And would all of our MLK Commission sponsors and partners please stand to be recognized? And this is our sponsor list. Thank you all. I'd also like to thank the city staff, I mentioned them, who have worked with me in various capacities to support the MLK Commission this year. And these are staff members in the offices of Community Affairs, Multicultural Affairs, and Communication and Neighborhood Relations. So thank you, city team, for your hard work and dedication. And finally, on behalf of the mayor and his MLK Commission, I invite all of our residents and friends to join us for a series of activities. Mayor Dyer mentioned the first, the kickoff, which began last night. And I thank all our commissioners that were able to join us for that. And also, while I'm mentioning commissioners and the mayor, I'd like to congratulate you all on your term and your being sworn in this morning. It was a beautiful ceremony this morning for Mayor Dyer, Commissioner Sheehan, Commissioner Ortiz, and Commissioner Burns. So congratulations to you all. And at this time, Mayor Dyer mentioned the website, so if you don't have it, please note it's mlkorlando.com. You can get all the updates on the events that are coming up there. And Brandy, our commission chair, would like to briefly highlight a few events and also share a couple words before we have the proclamation read. And we would like to have our MLK Commission come up with Mayor Dyer for a picture with the proclamation, and then we would like to have our sponsors join us for that. Brandy?
Thank you, Marcia. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members. Welcome back again, Mayor, Commissioner Ortiz, Commissioner Sheehan, and Commissioner Burns. And thank you for your important service to our community. Last night at the interfaith service, we heard a call to action, in addition to the one that Commissioner Hill gave us, for each one of us to act in ways that move us toward Dr. King's dream of a beloved community. In his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, Dr. King said, "I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds and dignity, equality, freedom for their spirits." I'm here today to issue a call to action as well. I would to specifically invite each one of you, everybody in this room and everybody who's watching, to 2 of our specific events, because they are related to what I just read. This year, for our annual Great Day of Service on MLK Day, January 15th, we are honored to participate in the U.S. Hunger Million Meal Pack. Yes, we're going to pack 1 million meals for families right here in Central Florida. We need 3,000 to 5,000 volunteers to help us. Mayor, I know you and Commissioner Stewart have already signed up for your shifts, and I believe others have as well. If not, it's not too late. We need everyone's help to meet our audacious goal. February 2nd is our annual MLK concert, produced and directed by Dr. Jeffrey Redding. It will be at the incredible Steinmetz Hall. The admission for this extraordinary concert, featuring a community choir of over 400 voices, non-perishable food, or cash donations for United Against Poverty. Talk about food, culture, and diversity converging on our community. Mark your calendars, Friday, February 2nd, 7 p.m. Bring food. Mayor, I understand you have a proclamation.
Thank you, Brandy, and thank you for all the work that the commission does. So I do have a proclamation that I would like to read part of. Whereas January 15th marks the 38th anniversary of the national holiday honoring the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of America's most visionary leaders who led civil rights activism in our nation through nonviolent means. And whereas since 1986, the Orlando Mayor's MLK Commission, an appointed citizen advisory board, has worked to promote Dr. King's legacy of service, equality, justice, peace, respect, and inclusion for all. And whereas 2024 marks the 25th anniversary of the Orlando Mayor's MLK Youth Humanitarian Program, which has recognized more than 1,000 outstanding students selected by their schools because they exemplify Dr. King's ideals. And whereas the City of Orlando celebrates and promotes Dr. King's incredible historic legacy, we thank our sponsors and encourage residents to participate in MLK holiday activities and programs, sharing in our efforts to make Orlando a more welcoming, inclusive, and equitable community. Now, therefore, we, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, and the entire Orlando City Council hereby do proclaim January 7th through the 15th, 2024 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Week in the City of Orlando. Yep. Okay, moving on from the updates, moving on from the presentations, we'll go right to the mayor's update. And it was mentioned by Brandy that we had our swearing in earlier this morning. So today is day one of new four-year terms for me, for Commissioner Ortiz, for Commissioner Sheehan, and for Commissioner Burns. Thank you each for your remarks. I look forward to serving with you along with Commissioner Gray, Commissioner Stewart, and Commissioner Hill, at least for the next 2 years, and then 2 more after that, maybe. But it's, I think I keep getting asked what's going to happen after I'm done in 4 years. It's like, you're supposed to be asking what we're going to do for the next 4 years. So I kind of feel an urgency to get things that are left undone done in the next 4 years. So we're going to have some fun the next few years. Okay. Tomorrow is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and we all recognize, and our communities recognize, that our OPD officers risk their lives every single day to keep us safe. And 6 months ago, I guess, we had 2 of our officers that were shot in the line of duty. They're both doing well now, but it could have been a more precarious outcome, and we need to be mindful of that every day and thankful for their courage and commitment. And also tomorrow, January 9th, marks 7 years since we lost one of our heroes, OPD Lieutenant Deborah Clayton. She was dedicated not only as a police officer, but in many ways to making our community a better place. And although time has passed, her work is certainly missed, but also remembered. Over the weekend, we had a temporary art exhibit called Prismatica that was installed at Lake Lucerne and Orange Avenue, so kind of the corner entrance to downtown. There's 10 panels, I think, between those two, and then another 5 panels in the lot where we have the mural on South Orange. They're pretty cool. Lots of people coming to take pictures, so I encourage you to take a look at that, and that will be on display through February 11th, which means they will be here through the marathon. And then one other item of note on the agenda today, ordinance number 1, which relates to affordable housing, which we know we have a crisis in housing right now. So today we'll vote on an amendment to our land development code that will allow an increase in production of affordable housing units in the city by enhancing the availability of density and intensity bonuses for very low income housing developments. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda, which is a number of items acted upon through a single vote of council. We give our council members an opportunity to comment on items on the consent agenda, as well as important happenings from their district. We rotate the order that we do that. Commissioner Hill is first up today.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations, Mayor, on yet another term, along with Commissioner Ortiz, Commissioner Sheehan, Commissioner Burns. It's just been an honor to work with you all and glean from you. I must admit, Mayor, every time you say your last term, I get a pit in my stomach. Maybe we might convince you one more. But nevertheless, thank you for your leadership, and this community has been transformed because you came, and all of you all. Okay, on the consent agenda, I'm pleased to see on number 3, something that is very essential, and I'm glad to see coming back downtown Orlando, and that is the new Social Security Administration office that's coming back downtown Orlando. Many years ago, it was there in Paramore on Huey and Washington, and it really caused those that needed access to go away to Gatlin and catch 3 or 4 buses and be seniors, some type of hardship. So to see it coming back downtown and directly across from Link is going to create better access for those very important services that they offer. Also, Mayor, under your leadership, probably in 2006, when you created the Paramore Kids Zone and put the Children's Trust together, how we've seen those children in the Paramore area and their families' lives improve because of that, and to see nearly $2.4 million now being allocated not only to Paramore Kids Zone or Mercy Drive Kids Zone or Inglewood and Holden Heights, which is now spread the footprint, giving child care, New Image Youth Center, and PASS, our Early Learning Coalition, our page 15 that help youth learn to read and write. It's just tremendous of the funds, and that's when we start talking about Martin Luther King, access and equity and education and social programs. I think this city, under this council and especially Mayor Dyer's leadership with the vision he had, has really given these kids a lot of hope and access when things were somewhat hopeless. And then another $3.3 million that's been set aside for a variety of services, from substance abuse to mental health, to scholarships for our youth in those inner city cores of the city that makes almost today $5.7 million going towards making sure that our future is bright in our inner cities through our youth services, through Family Parks and Rec. And thank you, Lisa, for the team that you've put together to help Mayor Dyer and this council and this city when it comes to our youth. Also, excited to see Orrin and his team put $187,000 worth of CDBG funding to go to Rebuilding Together, organization we're quite familiar with, that we did a roofing program to help with the rehab program here in the city of Orlando for very low income homeowners. When we start talking about affordable housing, but preventing these homeowners from becoming homeless and helping them reduce their maintenance costs and have healthy and safe and livable conditions is much needed. And hopefully we can see continue to see more funding goes toward low-income homeowners with rehab projects. Another yes for me on the agenda, something that I haven't heard of, and so I love the city because of their forward thinking, is OPD funding and award going to create a victim advocate officer for those that have been impacted with the opioid epidemic, fentanyl, Percocet, and all those things, that have lost family members or fallen victim to overdoses, to investigate those crimes, because it is a crime and a set aside way to give people these deadly substances, and that person was important to someone. And so to see that added on to the force, special investigators, quite creative and much needed, not only Orlando but throughout the nation with this opioid epidemic. And I was reading somewhere in another city and state that they have already had in the last 6 months over 500 deaths from opioid overdoses. On Tuesday, some of the things I've done since last council, I worked over in Rock Lake Neighborhood Center with Mrs. Alondra Hector, which Lisa and her team has now appointed the center manager, which is a great story. Commissioner Ortiz, she was a kid that grew up in the Inglewood. She's 18 years old. Grew up in the Inglewoods neighborhood. 5 years old at the Inglewood Center. Came up as a junior counselor over there, and has been interning, creating that gap we had didn't have a center manager at Rock Lake, and she has single-handedly transformed that Rock Lake Neighborhood Center alone, going out, getting partners, getting grants on her own, just doing a phenomenal job. And that just states, she supervises almost 15 staff members, but how these city recreation programs really raise up the next leaders in growing from those centers, now being a center manager. I'm just an outstanding young lady, and has done an amazing job. Also, we had a neighborhood meeting with the Harrison Estate community, which I call Mayor Dyer and Council the last frontier of District 5. We have really revitalized District 5 under Mayor Dyer's leadership and this council's support tremendously over, I know, the last 10 years, where District 5 is one of the, outside of Lake Nona and Thornton Park. I'll get in trouble if I start naming names, but it's one of the most desired districts in the city of Orlando. But there was a needed attention over in the Harrison Estates, which is one of our oldest neighborhoods. And when it was created, it was more created in a rural fashion. So Mayor Dyer in our Public Works and Stormwater Department is now getting ready to, and with the council's approval, we approved over a almost $4.5 million to do infrastructure over there, and now create a safe, walkable neighborhood, and work on our stormwater component over there. Something that was very impacted with Ian, and the neighborhood flooded. So to see that neighborhood being revised is going to be phenomenal. On December the 12th, we celebrated a milestone in District 5, Fire Station number 2, which was the heart of Paramore at one time, the pride of Paramore, and still is. Celebrated 100 years of being in service. So congratulations to the men and women over under your leadership, Chief, on 100 years over there. Still doing a phenomenal job. And we had a multitude of community outreaches during the Christmas holidays over at Mercer Drive Community Center, Jackson Center, Callahan Center, and of course Rock Lake. And through those efforts and partnerships, I'd like to thank Athletic Connections, the Downtown Hospitality Association, the Beecham Group, Harley-Davidson Orlando Magic. We were able to give away about 6,000 toys to the youth of District 5, along with about 600 bikes. So every child in District 5 should have woken up with something, and we didn't make it exclusive. Commissioners, whoever came was able to receive something for Christmas. So it was a citywide effort just in District 5. Also like to thank EA Sports for their contribution also. And I think we went over with the MLK Commission some of the up and coming things that are going on with MLK, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to just start by wishing everyone a Happy New Year. And after taking the oath of office this morning, I'm looking forward to the next 4 years of serving alongside of my colleagues. And so I'm really looking forward to the work that lies ahead of us. Over the holidays, our office partnered with a few organizations to bring smiles and resources to District 6. I would like to acknowledge Osborne and Francis, PA, St. Mark AME Church, Commissioner Mike Scott, and Cole Anthony of the Orlando Magic for great events that were brought to District 6. This coming Wednesday, I have my mobile office hours that will take place at the L. Claudia Allen Center from 10 a.m. to 4. Individuals who would like to meet with me and my staff, please reach out to us and get scheduled, or you can just walk in. We will be there again from 10 to 4. Mayor, on the agenda this afternoon, I wanted to acknowledge agenda item D1, the grant to the Central Florida Foundation Legacy Trust for Orlando Children in the amount of $2.3 million. Congratulations to 4C, New Emmett Youth Center, PASS Incorporated, Early Learning Coalition of Orange County, the Orlando Community and Youth Trust, page 15, and the Holden Heights Community Development Corporation. So thank you to all of those groups. Congratulations on the funding, and thank you to all of those groups for the fine work that you provide and services you provide to our youth. Also, under housing F2, the CDBG funding for rebuilding Together Tampa Bay for $187,000. As Commissioner Hill mentioned, these are resources that are dedicated to 10 households to bring them up to be in safe, healthy, and livable conditions. So thank you to Rebuilding Tampa for really kind of taking over some of the Orlando operations when the Rebuilding Together Orlando organization ceased operations. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor.
Gray.
Thank you, sir, very much. And congrats to everybody on the next 4 years. Look forward to it. A couple events, community events I wanted to mention. This Friday, the 12th at 10:30, there'll be a groundbreaking for the University of Central Florida College of Nursing out on the Lake Nona campus. And it's a reminder that this will be, as I counted, number 8 in the list of major medical facilities we have and enjoy out in Lake Nona. We started with Nemours Hospital, Children's Hospital, then with the VA Hospital, which is the busiest in the entire system, with the exception of maybe Walter Reed Hospital. The third was the UF Research Facility. Fourth was the Guidewell Incubation Lab. Fifth was the UCF Cancer Center. Also, the next one, UCF Medical School. And then HCA came in and did a teaching hospital. So this will be number 8. The UCF College of Nursing is going to get started. So that's 10:30 this Friday, and I'm sure everybody's welcome. Use the mayor's name, you can get in. Then a week from Wednesday at 6 p.m., the Orlando Economic Partnership is having their annual dinner out at UCF, and that's at 6 p.m., honoring a gentleman named Tom Sinema, who was a big community leader, still is, was instrumental in Lift Orlando and helping with housing and community services on the west side. So that's Wednesday the 12th, 6 p.m. I'm sure go on the OEP website and you can sign up for that. On the agenda, real quick, I mentioned earlier, I'm voting no on one item under the historic preservation, item C2, item 10341, which is a proposed lot split on 603 Hillcrest. Not a big fan of the applicant. Don't think you should be doing business here, so I'm going to vote no on that one item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's keep it short. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great New Year. It seems like it's going to be a year full of excitement, politics and whatnot. But anyhow, congratulations, Mayor. Congratulations, Commissioner Burns, and Commissioner Sheehan. We are tomorrow, the legislative session begins in Tallahassee, and many people don't think about this, but it's very important that we get involved, that we know what's going on. There's at least 3 legislations, which I'm not going to tell you to vote for it or not, because we're not allowed to give any tips on that one. But I please ask you to read about this. One is a proposed constitutional amendment. It's going to be a tax relief reduction, some sort of reduction, short-term vacation rentals, and local zoning requirements. Please look at that and talk to your delegation up in Tallahassee to represent you. Stay on top of these issues. They do affect us. We get preempted in many occasions, and if we don't get involved, then we can complain. So let's go ahead and make sure that people know how we feel about these things. It's very important. It's part of democracy. It's part of what we want to do, right? So that's about it. I'm hoping that everybody has a great year this year. I mean, as I said, it's going to be a year full of politics, full of all kinds of great things, and the city of Orlando always striving. So thank you so much, Mayor. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Tony, for giving me your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to take the next few minutes and talk a little bit about. Take your time up. No, I won't do that. I do want to share a couple of things. First, congratulations, Mayor and Tony and Patty and Bakari. It's an honor to work with you and look forward to continuing that. Thank you very much. A couple of things that I wanted to share with you about some quick things going on. I want to say a special thank you to our Lake Silver OPD for our Super Kids program. We had an opportunity to work with them in Lake Silver, and I appreciate that. They did a great job over there. The YMCA over in the Grove had their first Jingle Jam run together. We had about 250 people that was there. Thank you for that. That was a great way for them to raise a little bit of money and give it away. And I also want to say happy birthday to our own Deborah Gerard. She's listening, so I'll make sure she gets a special happy birthday from me. Coming up this evening is the annual meeting of the College Park Main Street at 5 o'clock. The College Park Neighborhood Association has their annual meeting today at 7 o'clock. And of course, the MLK Parade is coming up this Saturday. I hope everybody will get a chance to come, be part of that. It's a great way to enjoy the community. And on some other issues, the Gravity Room is opening up on North Orange Avenue, just in the edge of my district. I'm excited about that. And Lake Silva Elementary is having their baby gator shower. So I want everybody to please plan on attend on January 25th. Please come and bring a gift for the baby gator. I don't understand anything more about that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I know that. The Orlando Museum of Art's having their centennial celebration, and of course the legislative days are coming up on the 29th and the 1st of January. We get a chance to go up there and spend some time up there. On the agenda today, I want to say a special thanks to the Vintage Group. They'll be doing some work over and open up a new place over at the Yard, and we are approving their business assistance program on C9 today. And that's all that I have, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, and to Commissioner Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. And I also want to congratulate my colleagues. This was kind of a hard-fought one for me. Commissioner Ortiz, you got to walk, so you're all good. But Commissioner Burns, Mayor Dyer, and I had a little bit more rock and roll in our districts. But I just want to say that when you take the high road, it's a better thing to do. So thanks everybody for running good, positive campaigns and coming back and joining us again. So that's a great thing. Look forward to working with you all the next 4 years. On the agenda today, we do have item B2, the East Robinson Street improvements. The problem is the good thing is we're doing sewer line improvements. The bad news is there are going to be lots of road closures. So unfortunately, construction is never fun. It's a major artery in our city, but we have got to fix this infrastructure. So there is going to be some construction coming on East Robinson Street. Also, I think the hire of the substance abuse victim advocate is a great thing. The overdose investigative unit assisting opioid addicts as well as family members who have fallen victim to overdoses. This is a horrible thing in our community, and it's great to see that we're putting resources to deal with that. I also want to just call out to staff. The Lake Eola was absolutely beautiful over the holidays. Lou Gardens was a wonderful community event. There were folks every night at Lou Gardens. I live over there, and it was great to see so many families and folks just enjoying our beautiful gardens, and Lake Eola Park was so busy that we couldn't even, you had to leave an hour ahead of time to get there because there were so many people coming to the park. Sherry Gutch, you did an amazing job. Quincy and Richardson and everybody at Lake Eola Park did such a phenomenal job. And it was just, everybody loved that park, and coming there was so great to see so many people really, really enjoying it. And if anybody doesn't understand how important it is to have events where people can come together, you should have been at Lake Eola, because it was just absolutely wonderful, from Vi-Electric to all the events to the showcase of the children. It was just magical the whole time. I also like to thank the Orlando Police Department for making an arrest. We had a rash of home burglaries that was targeting retired residents without alarms and no dogs. It's somehow these people were casing these neighborhoods. So if someone's coming to your door and asking you questions about an alarm, they were actually targeting elderly residents they had their homes paid off. They really targeted residents in my district. OPD has made an arrest, but I just want to caution anyone, if someone comes to your door and starts asking you a lot of information, that's not for your benefit. That's usually for theirs. And unfortunately, some folks in my district fell victim to this scam. But luckily, through the great work of the Orlando Police Department, they actually made an arrest already, and they're going to make another arrest hopefully soon. But again, it's not your lucky day when someone comes knocking on your door asking you a lot of questions. Chances are they're not there to help you. So with that, Mayor, I will go ahead and move the consent agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Burns. All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Okay, we don't have any CRA, Neighborhood Improvement District, or OPEB, so let's move to hearings, ordinances on first reading.
Ordinance number 2023-34, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to parking as an accessory use, amending Chapter 58, Part 5A Land Development Code entitled General Requirements, amending Chapter 61, Part 3A Land Development Code entitled Off-Street Parking, amending Chapter 66 of the Land Development Code entitled Definitions, providing for severability, codification of Scrivener's error, and an effective date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Madam Clerk, is there anyone who has requested public testimony?
No speakers, Mayor.
No speakers. We'll close the public hearing. All in favor of the motion, or discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, so the motion carries. Commissioners, this ordinance requires a public hearing after 5 o'clock unless we vote by supermajority to hold the second public hearing at our normal City Council meeting time. Staff recommends that we hold the second public hearing at our regularly scheduled City Council meeting beginning at 2 o'clock on January the 22nd, 2024. Is there a motion for such?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Burns. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries by more than a supermajority. Okay, hearings, ordinances, second reading, number 1.
Ordinance number 2023-47, an ordinance of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain land generally located north of Silver Star Road, east of Mercy Drive, and south of Shader Road, and comprised of 4.88 acres of land, more or less, and amending the city's boundary description, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as industrial on the city's official future land use maps, designating the property as industrial general with a Wekiva overlay district on the city's official zoning maps, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Madam Clerk.
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Number 2, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 2023-52, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the special land development regulations of the Beth Road Land Development Zoning District, such land being generally located north of Beth Road, east of Boggy Creek Road, and west of Happy Lane, and comprised of approximately 39.57 acres of land, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Ortiz. Madam Clerk.
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 3.
Ordinance number 2023-53, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, vacating, closing, and abandoning the northern portion of Lee Avenue, generally located south of Piedmont Street, west of South Paramore Avenue, and north of Citrus Street, as described in the South Orlando Plat, as recorded in Plat Book 1012, page 146 of the Public Records of Orange County, Florida, and comprised of 0.21 acres of land, more or less, providing for the execution of affecting documents, severability, correction of Scrivener's error, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner Hill. Madam Clerk?
No speakers, Mayor.
No speakers. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 4.
Ordinance number 2023-54, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's growth management plan to change the future land use map designation for certain land generally located south of Piedmont Street, west of South Paramore Avenue, north of Citrus Street, and east of South Westmoreland Drive, comprised of 2.15 acres of land, more or less, from industrial to residential medium intensity, changing the property zoning designation from general industrial with the traditional city overlay district to medium intensity development with the traditional overlay district, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner Hill. Madam Clerk?
No speakers, Mayor.
No public testimony. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 5.
Ordinance number 2023-55, an ordinance of the City of Orlando, Florida relating to disorderly conduct, amending Chapter 43, Section 43.06 of the Code of the City of Orlando, Florida, prohibiting the intentional blockage of sidewalks, providing for severability, providing for codification, correction of Scrivener's error, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Okay, we do have a number of speakers. Chief, is Alex here from OPD?
Michael Phillips will be speaking.
Okay, could you come up and give us a quick, brief intro into this? Tell us what it does and doesn't do.
Of course, Mr. Mayor. So this ordinance is, well, the added language to the ordinance creates a specific intent offense that prohibits a person from intentionally blocking public streets or roads. That could be by standing, lying, sitting, placing an object in a fashion that is intended to block another person's passage or requires that person to take evasive action. Key here is that this language requires that the conduct be intended to achieve that result, that it be intended to block passage. So unintentional or incidentally unintentionally blocking someone's passage, or merely incidentally blocking someone's passage through standing somewhere or walking up to somebody and asking them a question would not violate this this new clause in the ordinance.
Okay, I do have one question. Some people suggested that this is aimed specifically at our homeless population. I don't buy that, but do you want to speak to that?
It is not. If anything, it is far more likely to be used in situations during the busy closing times
Friday and
in
Saturday
downtown Orlando as the bars are letting out and closing.
Right. Okay. Further questions? Commissioner Ortiz.
Years ago, and just for the sake of clarifying, I read something along the lines, and I can quote verbatim, that is, and this is the federal level is my understanding, that if all the shelters are full and somebody decides to camp on a sidewalk, we can deal with that. We can mess with that because there's no space for them, to stay or whatnot. That's something I'd like for us to do some research. However, in the case that this is not this was not to happen, and there is space in shelters, and somebody was camping and blocking a sidewalk. Is my understanding that a police officer, if a police officer came in contact with somebody like this, they will give them a warning and say, please, you need to move your camp or whatnot. Am I correct on that?
Essentially, yes, Mr. Commissioner. What I will say is this ordinance is not intended as a stand-in for camping. We already have a camping ordinance that addresses outdoor sleeping, and officers that enforce that ordinance do routinely give warnings. They'll go through various areas of the city, essentially waking folks up in the early AM hours saying, hey, can you move along? And those individuals, the camping ordinance really only gets enforced when there's specifically indicia of actual camping, stuff like sleeping bags, tents, things like that, and really only when the person does not vacate after being warned. And this ordinance itself, even before this proposed amendment, was already addresses unintentionally blocking passage. And in that context, enforcement requires a warning by law enforcement.
So intentionally being the key word here, which creates the intention, of course. Now, could you explain or give us some example about placing an object in such a manner as to intentionally block? Give us some example of what that may be, just to clarify.
So if someone were to place their own barricades across a sidewalk or a street without, appropriate permitting and permission, and then pedestrians, vehicles started to get past that, that would be an example of intentionally placing an object to block passage.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
One last question, just to clarify. And it is certainly not aimed at 18A content, which you get a permit and you can actively protest in the city of Orlando.
It is not aimed towards any permitted content.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, I did have a
Commissioner
question.
Burns.
Yeah. Can you tell me what was the impetus for this amendment to the ordinance? Was there something that has been routinely happening that is driving us to consider this?
In certain circumstances, particularly during those busy hours in downtown Orlando on Fridays and Saturdays, as it currently stands, the ordinance requires that warning. And sometimes when someone is doing intentional conduct that creates a public safety issue, we don't necessarily want to have to give them a warning, hey, stop blocking all of these cars, if someone is actually intentionally blocking them. If they're just unintentionally, we don't want to be leaping to enforcement. But when they're intentionally doing the conduct, we believe it's safer for everyone to be able to go ahead and take that enforcement action to make everybody safe.
So if someone is arrested under this amended ordinance, is there any type of data that's collected to describe exactly what was that behavior that moved them to be arrested?
When an officer makes an arrest, they write an arrest affidavit, which describes the factual circumstances of arrest and in which they articulate probable cause for making the arrest. And of course, also, all of our officers are equipped with body cameras, so the body camera recordings should also be recording what occurred.
So also so if there's someone laying down on the streets or sleeping on the streets, are you saying that our current camping or non-camping ordinance addresses that, and this is not something that will be used to address those situations? The
camping ordinance is what's intended to address that conduct, not this ordinance.
Okay. So the camping ordinance addresses laying down or sleeping on the...
It addresses sleeping out of doors on public property.
Okay, and this disorderly, this new amended disorderly ordinance would not be used to address that?
It should not be.
It should not be.
Nah.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
I want to clarify, because it should be used. We should have all twos to be able, no matter where, enforce the law. No matter if they're sleeping on sidewalks, if people have tents on sidewalks and are obstructing pedestrian thoroughfare, if they're downtown Orlando and the sidewalks are covered and they need to move it along, that law needs to be enforced. It should not specify, no, we're just gonna use the encampment for this one, and we're not gonna, no, if you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law. Whether if you are a multimillionaire or you're homeless, we all have to follow the law. So I just wanna make sure, Commissioner and legal, that this amendment will be enforced throughout, no matter who you are.
I think what he's saying is that there's already a camping.
There is, but he said this shouldn't be used. All laws should be used, regardless where.
To clarify, I did not...
Because if we're gonna use the tent law, we could have been used that. We could have been used that. But this law should be applied also if we have encampments and people are laying on the sidewalks, if they have tents on the sidewalks, if they have buggies on the sidewalks, or if they're just congregating and need to be moved along on a Friday, Saturday night. It does not matter if this law is going to be enforced downtown, where this is obstruction. It needs to be applied the same way on the west side when there's obstruction of sidewalks. So I just want to make that shit.
All right. Mr. Sheehan.
Well, and the way that I understood this, because I mean, I've experienced this conduct too, especially when I'm walking back, usually I park at City Hall and I'll go out downtown and I usually go to, events at DAD, Downtown Arts District. And the problem is that everybody outside the bars is congregating outside the bars, blocking all the sidewalks. And if you try to walk by, they call you names. I've been challenged. I mean, and anybody who says, well, you shouldn't feel afraid. Well, you know what? If I'm a city commissioner and I'm feeling for my safety, you must feel really good in your male privilege, because I shouldn't have to be afraid to walk in my own city, okay? So this is designed to stop that kind of, somebody challenging you just because you want to walk back to your car at night. And I actually have witnessed a lot of that kind of conduct when I'm in downtown late at night, that people will challenge you if you just try to walk by them, and that's not cool. So I do think the police do need a little bit more clarification on that, because there are some folks that get a little cocktailed and get a little nasty when you're just trying to walk by them. So I think this is important because it's a impediment, and I think that women should be able to walk safely in downtown at night. That's that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in supporting this, and I know this has been talked about in a whole different way than what has been intended. But I've actually shared with this council how I've had situations where I've tried to walk back to City Hall after I go to an event, and I've been challenged when I just try to walk on a sidewalk. So that's why I think this is important to do, and that's a clarification. This has got nothing. This has again been turned into something else other than what it is. Thanks, Mayor.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Mayor, I just want to clarify, for the benefit of those who are listening, that the key word intentionally is very important. I don't want people to think that, because I know there's been all kinds of rumors, we created this law to go after people that are homeless, whatnot. No, that's definitely not the intent. There's some other issues that are happening with people that are aggressive that had nothing to do with the homeless. And somebody that's homeless asking for money, whatever the case may be, it's not going to be intentionally, for the most part, the experience I had. And I work in law enforcement for 14 years. And I'll tell you what we used to do in the mornings, 5 o'clock in the morning. We used to go downtown bikes. We used to go and wake up those who were sleeping on the bridges and stuff like that. And they know us by name, and we knew them by name. And it was that kind of relationship. And because they would have to go to work or whatever the case may be to them. So I know there's a lot of people thinking that this is going after the people that are homeless, and this is not the case. So please understand that. That's all I want to.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. Commissioner Hill.
Yeah, I want to say this, Mayor, as a person that lives in the West Side and have to deal with this on a daily. No, we're not targeting anyone, but I do think there's homeowners and residents that need some type of assurance that when we have people that are continuously sleeping on these benches in front of your house or on the sidewalk, and we feel unsafe, so much so I have not mentioned this, but I dare, since we have people here today, to 3 weeks ago, the same person sleeping outside of my house, watching me and my grandson come in every day and every night, ends up in the middle of my living room at 5 o'clock in the morning with a knife. But we didn't have any tools to move him along, and I thank God that I woke up and found him in my living room, and OPD came out with the dogs and found him. So our lives are in danger. Even a commissioner that was almost being targeted, but they're laying there on the sidewalks every day, and we can't do anything. And now I'm afraid to sleep at night because someone in the middle of my front room could have killed me and my grandson if I hadn't woke up. So this is serious. And we do need some tools to move people along so they can't target people day in and day out and know their behaviors. That's all I got to say, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thank you. All right, I do have in excess of 20 requests to comment on this item, and I would ask you to keep your comments germane to this particular ordinance. So this ordinance does not have anything to do with the conflict in the Middle East, so we don't need comments related to that. We need comments on this disorderly conduct ordinance. And then also, this is not aimed at protest activity that's covered under 18A, so that's fairly clear for you. Okay, you'll get 3 minutes. I'm going to call your name. I'm going to call 3 in a row, so you're ready to go. So the first 3, come up, give your name, your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to comment. Samantha Waraska, Ghislaine Lopez, and Samuel Delgado.
Hello, my name is Samantha Wadraska. I'm a constituent of District 2 and would prefer not to give my address. I'm here today in opposition to Ordinance 2023-55. In response to your comments, it is exceedingly difficult to prove or disprove intent, and likewise, as the police officers may not know the intent of the unhoused people. We don't know the intent behind your ordinance, and what we are concerned with is the impact and the potential for misuse due to the vague language. The vague language leaves room for interpretation that has the potential to be used for harm. And also, if the concern is aggressive or violent behavior, which I understand that can be scary as a woman, why does the ordinance not address aggressive behaviors with that language? Why is it walking, laying, standing, or sitting that's the listed behaviors? That's what I don't understand. Additionally, I think that going to these punitive measures without having adequate first option resources for the unhoused, and I know that y'all are working on that, but currently there are not adequate resources, and we see that there are a lot of unhoused people that aren't having their needs met. So why, instead of first having these first order options for the unhoused people, are we jumping straight to, I believe it was up to 60 days in jail, is that correct? Right. Additionally, the officers here in Orlando over the past 2 decades have had the second highest rate of fatal police shootings out of every city in the country. So maybe it could be harmful to open up this vague language to be potentially misused against people who are already some of the most vulnerable in our community. It seems to me that the city of Orlando isn't treating our unhoused community members as neighbors, as community members, but rather looking at them as people who don't deserve the same access to care, the same access to resources as the rest of us. Thank you for listening. I am urging you to vote no on Ordinance 2023-55. Thank you.
Ghislaine Lopez, Samuel Delgado, Martha R.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ghislaine Lopez.
You might want to just pull that mic down a little bit.
Okay, hello. Hi, everybody. Hello. Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Ghislaine Lopez Itza, a resident of District 6, Times Square Ave. The ordinance is detriment to the people of Orlando. We are said to have the right under this country to peacefully assemble, yet it's the language used on this ordinance, it's treading alongside with our unhoused neighbors with the vague language being used. According to the Homeless Service Network of Central Florida, homelessness has risen over 75% since the pandemic, with 38% of that being as early as 2023. This should be observed in tandem with the skyrocketing rent increases that are also being discussed in this city council meeting, with Florida seeing a 45% increase in rent costs by March of last year. Many Central Floridians have resorted with living with multiple roommates or moving back with families. Those are the lucky ones. People end up in the streets after the shelters have inevitably reached capacities, as we have discussed as well too. We have seen families separated from children's or spouses due to the gross restrictions placed on some of these shelters too, further fracturing the little support of the networks have left. These are your constituents that will now be left to survive on the streets, where this ordinance will leave them even more vulnerable to even more financial and physical harassment. Under this ordinance, the harassment will be government-funded and enforced. Florida ranks in the top 5% states with the highest incarceration rates in the United States. This ordinance will only contribute to the statistics by increasing unnecessary interactions with the police. Study shows that formerly incarcerated people are 10 times more likely to end up unhoused, which will in turn exacerbate the very issue of this ordinance claims to be attempting to fix. It is very easy to distance oneself from the reality of the situation. Also, as a woman, I understand the concerns being brought up by Ms. Patty Sheen, but we are your constituents and we are your neighbors. What passing this ordinance would show is a bipartisan lack of compassion, commitment to address some of the root problems, and the people are coming up to speak today, the people serving and organizing from the struggling communities we will not forget. So I implore you to please call to an end to Ordinance 2023. Thank you so much, City Councils.
Samuel Delgado, Martha R., Robert Quinones.
Good afternoon, Commission and Mayor Dyer. My name is Samuel Delgado. I live at 605 East Concord Street. That's in Commissioner Sheehan's district. I'm here today to talk about this ordinance and ask you all to vote against it. The language that is contained in the written ordinance, it's extremely vague, right? We had the speaker up here providing y'all clarifying information about how it should be used, and I heard a lot of the word should and could, right? And so y'all's intention in how this ordinance is enforced is really important in the passage of this language, right? But you won't be there when it's being imposed, right? So when someone is writing the citations and when someone's writing the police report of how they used this newfound power to provide or to charge someone with disorderly conduct, you're not going to be there to say, oh, this is actually how I meant for it to be used. And so, you know, the First Amendment implications that are there in the language, because of how difficult intent is to prove, you know, that doesn't happen until someone's already in court. You can't prove, oh, I was intentionally or unintentionally blocking the sidewalk. Also, the state of Florida already has disorderly conduct and loitering charges in the state statutes that the police could use today. One of the things that really brought so many people in community to notice the potential harms in the language that's in this ordinance is a quote from the representative of the Orlando PD when they were interviewed by WFTV, was saying that the new ordinance goes for anyone, whether for solicitation of donations, distribution of materials, marketing, signature collections, expression of viewpoints, threatening to fight, or any other purpose anywhere in the city. And so these are how the people who will be enforcing this ordinance are talking about it to the news. And so it's not coming from nowhere, and the possibility of its abuse is what is so concerning. Because, you know, Mayor Dyer, this is your last term, and you were talking about how you're excited to leave a good legacy, but, you know, you won't be there. And, you know, when this is codified and it's there 10 years down the line, it only takes one mistake from a police officer to ruin someone's life. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the comments I'm hearing because I didn't see the report on TV. I would like to see that report because to me, you know, I'm reading the ordinance is pretty specific, but I also understand where you guys are coming from. It says intentionally blocking passage. The other thing I wanted to ask the attorney, because this is a misdemeanor, so if this was going to happen, it has to occur in the presence of the police officer. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, this does not fall
hearsay
under
thing.
any exemption to the general requirement that
Exactly.
a misdemeanor arrest, for an arrest to be made, the misdemeanor has to be committed in the presence
In the
of the
presence of a
officer.
police officer, so he can determine the intention when he comes with a person, if the person's really wanting to block or not blocking. And as we said before, and unless you just don't have any kind of faith in our police department, which is something we're trying, but I believe a police officer is not, and I'm not saying that every police officer is perfect, but I will tell you from my working with the police department, we have good police officers that would endure a great deal of trouble if they were to abuse something like this. Once again, I'm trying to explain so you guys understand the nature of this ordinance. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Martha R., Robert Quinones, Alicia Sastry.
Good afternoon, Martha R., Homeless Services Network and Central Florida Commission on Homelessness, and I'm 142 East Jackson Street. We know that this administration is keenly aware that no community can arrest their way out of homelessness, and you now have a national reputation for engaging in effective solutions, regardless of how challenging those solutions are. Especially knowing that an ordinance on the books will outlast the intent of the council that passes it, we ask that the city review the ordinance with a careful lens and explore ways to ensure protection from unintended consequences, including risks to people who've increasingly limited options for where to lay their heads. Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask Martha a question?
Commissioner Burns.
Martha, when you say add some language or, I guess, massage the ordinance, do you have any suggestions on what could possibly be added to the ordinance that would give that layer of protection that you speak about?
You know, I don't know. I'm hearing that some of the concerns are about how people engage. I think engagement activities are easier to describe than intent. But what I do hear is that there is a lack of consistency about how people are interpreting this ordinance. And so that, to me, says that there's need for some clarification somehow in this. And we'd be glad to try and talk through what some different language might mean or might look like. But it's, you know, it's concerning that there's not the honed in, this is what it means and how it will be used, et cetera, because then it seems like it will open the door for some, again, for some unintended consequences that might not be what this council has envisioned.
And Mayor, I think it needs to be made clear that the ordinance specifically states that after the individual or group is asked to move and move out of the way or stop blocking the sidewalk or whatever being blocked, that's when the officer then has the ability to then arrest or do anything else. So it's not like they could just see someone. The ordinance does not state that they could just see someone laying on the streets and just move strictly to arresting or some type of punitive damage. It does say that after being ordered to move by law enforcement officers. So I think that everyone who's looking at this needs to be clear that this will happen after an attempt to have the individual move from blocking or impairing the walkway. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear on that.
Commissioner Hill?
Thank you, Mayor. Martha, wouldn't you say that we have met for a year with code enforcement, with law enforcement, with other community stakeholders, addressing some of the safety issues, even downtown and over in the Paramore area in the west side of Orlando, along with addressing creating more head spaces, especially at night, during the day, helping with day centers. So this city is sympathetic and has empathy for those experiencing homelessness. And as the young lady stated, we as a community are collaborating to try to get to expected outcome for those that are impacted. But you, as a leader here in the Homeless Service Network, know that something has to be done because it is some safety issues. Not trying to criminalize, and we know we can't arrest, but you have walked those streets with me and law enforcement and saw how we have had to go and walk in the middle of the road because the sidewalks have been obstructed by those that won't move it along. There's some great people out there that we're trying to help that does comply to the law. But there are some folks, if you must admit, that refuses to assist us with helping them or responding to code enforcement and law enforcement in a positive manner when they're trying to work with them. For the last year, yourself, myself, have worked with OPD, and they have been very empathetic and have not arrested those that aren't breaking the law that happen to be experiencing homelessness. They have gone out and tried to give information. So the reason I'm saying that is that I have faith in our law enforcement agency. I have faith in our chief that they're not going to go out and victimize people that already been victimized by society. They only want to assist them with complying and creating a safe thoroughfare for all citizens to walk by. And I just would like for you to tell some of the folks that really believe in your mission that you have worked with law enforcement, and I don't believe, and I'm certain you don't believe because you work hand in hand, that they're not going to go out there and just see someone already suffering and have nowhere to sleep and just automatically just remove them from the sidewalks or straight to jail. Only if they have conduct issues and are creating something that's detrimental to the safety of others.
I support everything you've said, and I agree. We have had some really helpful, we've been doing some good work over the last year, and that's included code enforcement and law enforcement and, all of those teams. Again, the central point of my comment is that this ordinance will outlast, would likely outlast this council. And so if there are enough folks who feel like the wording is vague enough to where it could be used in a way that is not your intent, then I just want to encourage you to look at that wording again. And this may be as good as it gets. I'm just asking that we look at the wording again and see if we can narrow it down, because absolutely nobody needs to be harassed the way sometimes folks get harassed. I'm not, I support that absolutely. Our sidewalks need to be safe. I'm just asking for another look to see if there's a way to.
It's always time to amend it, but I think today we need to pass this ordinance because, as you know, something has to be done.
Commissioner Ortiz.
I'm sorry I keep going back, but this is very interesting, so I appreciate it. I think I found the glitch here. I think, and if you allow me some leeway here, it says a person who walks, stands, sits, lies, or places an object in such manner as to intentionally block passage by another person. We're good so far. That's pretty clear, pretty concise. But then he says, or to require another person to take evasive action to avoid physical contact. That is ambiguous. That is ambiguous, excuse me. That's ambiguous because maybe it was not intentional, that particular segment there. Maybe, so I think we need to clarify or to change that particular segment as of or. I'd rather see that such manner as to intentionally block requiring another person to take evasive action. That is continuous. And then the last one, he says, or after being ordered to move by a law enforcement officer, which also create a predetermined action. So I think where you guys are probably feeling uncomfortable is that particular segment says, or to require another person to take evasive action, because you have to explain why is he taking evasive action unless there's a particular motive there. If there's an intentional issue. Is the attorney following me on this? Do you think that may be?
Hey, Commissioner, why don't we get all the testimony in, and then we can just do this one time?
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just trying to shorten it. Thank you.
Okay, Robert Quinones, Alicia Sastry.
Hello.
Minwin.
Hello. Yes, my name is Robert. I'm also known as Albisu. I am a resident of District 6, and I've been in Orlando for most of my life, and I come here before y'all as a concerned citizen. I think that we've had a lot of discussion about the ways in which that this ordinance does not address the issue of homelessness, and as uncomfortable as it might be for pedestrians to be walking, it is more uncomfortable for the homeless people to be put in these economic conditions with no kind of resortment to better economic development and things of that nature. So we know that this is not an answer to homelessness, but I think that it's clear that this is actually an ordinance aimed at protesters. Who else would it be aimed for? There's a nebulous kind of language. Okay. There's a nebulous kind of language where it's like, oh, you're out in the club and someone's in your way or someone's obstructing things. The only people that like put obstructions outside, like in the club, are like OPD when like they seal off the roads. It's clear to me that these past month or so that throughout the state there have been massive protests, massive peaceful protests of people who are concerned about their government's aiding and just completely unanimous decision to aid Israel. And there are American citizens concerned about that and want their voices to be heard. As far as I'm concerned, this is a infringement on your First Amendment right to convene in public spaces. You either have free speech or you don't have free speech. If you have to ask the government for this kind of like tag to give you this specific place where you can voice your concerns, then you really don't have free speech. This is a ordinance concerning public space, and people who are involved with organizing protests and want to voice their opinions to their government they have to resort to being on the sidewalk. Does that make sense? I want to remind you that when people are here, we're bowing our heads, we're in prayer. There's nothing to me of this ordinance that is Christ-like. There's no empathy in here. There's no humanity. And I will have you all remember that Martin Luther King was someone who intentionally blocked roads and blocked sidewalks. Thank you.
Okay, again, this has absolutely nothing to do with protest or any of the protests that we have had our OPD protect the people actually doing the protesting, so.
Wild
don't
that
buy
you're so
that.
intimidated, so. Alrighty, thank you guys so much. So I am also here. I am a member of District 2, zip code 32822.
Would you state your name, miss?
I'm sorry, what?
Your name?
Alicia Sassere. Thank you. Ortiz, so you are my commissioner. I do thank you for holding the space to at least break down the language. And because it is very vague. Obviously, if you have enough people in this room to fill up, because our interpretation is that it's being directed towards a certain vulnerable member of your community, then it should be addressed. It should be looked at more closely, because if our interpretation can lead to this, an officer's interpretation can lead to this. So I'm going to go back to what I originally was going to say to you guys. Obviously, yes, the language is very important. I think I can speak for so many of your residents when I say I have been one paycheck away at times from experiencing homelessness, despite having a full-time job as a paralegal, despite having at times 2 jobs. I'm a single mother who escaped domestic violence, and when I needed help the most out of a situation, I looked for resources in the community and found them scarce and limiting. I can only imagine how many of these people on the streets were also in that position and are out in these streets now, unfortunately obstructing sidewalks. I am also a mother to a child with special needs, so when officers are maybe commanding people experiencing homelessness to get out of the street, they may not understand, they may be nonverbal, they may have disabilities that are gonna hinder them from obeying the law. So maybe an officer is able to move them out of the way. Maybe they come back because they don't fully understand. My son personally, I can tell him not to do something, 5 seconds later he's gonna do it again because he just doesn't understand. And there are so many houseless communities in this community that are that way, and their family has tossed them aside, and they are now out in the streets, and they're not gonna understand this ordinance. They're not gonna understand our language of this. They're not intentionally trying to obstruct traffic, or sidewalks, but they are. So I just need you guys to understand that. It is within your power to do better. It's within your power to hold this, review the language, change it, submit it back, so it's clear and concise that this is not directing a certain marginalized group in your community. Orlando is a city beautiful, and it's clear to me after reviewing your budgets and your fiscal reports that your priority, dear Mayor and Commissioners, is to keep up the facade of beauty while your residents pay the price. Because let's be real, this ordinance is not about pedestrian safety. When I read it, it did not resonate as pedestrian safety. This ordinance is about the city beautiful, and the image it strives to maintain is progressive, diverse, and welcoming. This is about maintaining a certain image to many visitors and tourists that drive the city's profits. The fines and jail time that you seek to impose on these residents are not going to reduce homelessness, it's going to make it worse. I am imploring you, I have reviewed your funds, your budget plans, you have the authority, you have the ability to make a difference. Orlando's vision statement, is that Orlando is an international city which uses its diversity, amenities, and economy to provide a quality of life. But what is quality of life if you're going to continue to make these situations worse? Thank you.
Min
Free
Nguyen,
passing.
Jenna Ferreira, Kevin Lichtenberg.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Min Nguyen, and I am a resident of District 3. I strongly urge the City Council to vote against this ordinance 2023-55. Just within this meeting, I feel that the 6 commissioners have already demonstrated that there is a wide interpretation when it comes to this ordinance, and it would be irresponsible to leave that interpretation up to hundreds of OPD officers without guaranteeing the safety of homeless and other individuals in Orlando. The language used in this ordinance appears to be advocating for the safety of the community, but realistically will contribute to the alienation and displacement of marginalized community members. This ordinance grants authority to the Orlando Police Department to levy a misdemeanor charge against anyone they deem as intentionally inhibiting the flow of sidewalk traffic. This language is extremely broad and gives police sole discretion to detain or fine these individuals, in particular unhoused Orlandoans or unpermitted protests, for intentionally blocking the city sidewalks, which again is difficult to prove legally. While this ordinance is being considered, our community faces a crisis in affordable housing. According to the city's own data, the number of people in Orlando that are now facing homelessness has gone up by 75% since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. As we see more people unable to afford housing, the city of Orlando is demolishing at least 6 public housing communities which claim to be functionally obsolete due to the city claiming not to have funds. And yet they have funds to pursue this ordinance and paying those cops to brutalize citizens. If the intent of this ordinance is to keep people safe, this ordinance is counterproductive. In fact, this will risk keeping people experiencing homelessness from ever accessing housing or steady income. Levying civil fines on people who have nowhere to go locks the community into a cycle of incarceration. A $500 fine to someone who is unhoused is an insurmountable expense that would almost guarantee an individual faces further criminal legal action for non-payment. This ordinance will further stratify the class divide in downtown Orlando and only benefit the aesthetic sensibilities of privileged homeowners, tourists, and the authoritarian forces. In this moment where we see so many unfortunate people seeking shelter after losing their homes, it is irresponsible to punish individuals for simply existing in public spaces. If the City Council truly seeks to provide citizens and visitors the right to move freely and safely through the city, to live according to the principles put forth by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by addressing injustice and seeing the humanity of all Orlandoans, housed or unhoused, as this ordinance and this city council claim to, the city commissioners must vote no on ordinance 2023-55, which threatens some of our most vulnerable members of our community instead of providing the housing and resources that they so desperately need. Thank you.
Jenna Ferreira, Kevin Lichtenberg, Aaron Favis.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Kevin Lichtenberg, resident of Orlando.
Hold on, Kevin, is Jenna not here?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hold on, Kevin. Jenna's
no
first.
problem.
You're up, Jenna.
Hi, my name is Dr. Jenna Vega, and I'm a clinical pharmacist that works in the Orlando area. I had a previous statement prepared, but honestly, hearing the comments from the City Council has me very much concerned. As mentioned before by previous constituents, this language in this ordinance is incredibly vague. And despite the comments expressed by Commissioner Regina, I still have a lot of fear of how the police would interpret this, because it may be her experience, but it's been my experience and of many working class people and other people of color that the police do enforce laws how they wish. Also, I've been very disgusted to hear how we're speaking of our unhoused members. I urge everyone to remember that these are people with literally no resources. They have been discarded by society and are unfortunately treated in a violent manner as such. As a public health professional, I'm in the last semester of my master's in public health degree. We are taught that the data collected by the CDC and other professional health organizations within this country show that the single most important determinant of health, so the single factor that determines your outcomes of health outcomes and things like that, is simply your zip code. One of the main factors in how you can achieve health is how much access you have to resources, such as housing, such as food, such as being treated with basic dignity. I have genuine empathy for anyone who has ever experienced unsafe conditions, but jailing folks, criminalizing folks, giving police the potential to have an incentive to further criminalize and jail folks is not the answer. We must create solutions that address the problem at its core. That's ensuring living wages, that's ensuring access to healthcare, mental health care, housing, and community. We seem to be so reactive when addressing problems. This is a reactive ordinance. This does nothing to stop the cause. And I was here at a previous meeting. This is my second meeting. I was here previously. Y'all might remember me because I was urging a ceasefire resolution to be adopted. It wasn't even considered for a vote. But that's, again, just
an example of how you refuse to listen to your constituents. I had the pleasure of hearing other unhoused activists from the community during the last city council meeting, and they had very left views. They expressed that over-policing and cutting resources would do nothing for the cause. So I'm urging you to listen to the citizens that make Orlando beautiful. We make this city beautiful, and we are urging you to please vote against this ordinance. Please increase wages. Please advocate for housing, healthcare, and food, so we don't have to be reactive, that we can stop folks from becoming unhoused. Thank you.
All right, Kevin, you're up.
Cool. Kevin Lichtenberg, resident of Orlando before. I'm urban camper right now. I build houses, so I built most of Baldwin Park with a lot of help from other people, but so my only crime right now is I have bad credit. So I'm an urban camper in your beautiful city. Thank you, Ms. Hill, for the beautiful prayer in the beginning. It was very touching to see the Martin Luther King congregation here, the coalition here, and then for them to leave as soon as this crazy, I'm calling it the homeless profiling. And I know Mayor Dyer doesn't agree that this is actually just a bill to house the private prisons that Florida has. And this is all it's really going to do is address trying to disappear people like me who are just, like I said, my only crime is not having good credit. So I can't get an apartment or rent a house. So I don't do drugs. I do sleep on park benches sometimes, so I would have been one of the people you have probably seen when we wake up. You know, I know, I totally understand, but not all of us are like that. You know, some of us are just working every day. Like, and there's so many people right now in Orlando who you wouldn't even know who are homeless because they're living in hotels, they're living out of their cars. You don't even see them, and they're ashamed to even admit that they're homeless. And then Commissioner Sheehan, walking downtown at night, dealing with drunk people is no reason to pass this ordinance, especially when the lawmaker has already said that every single thing is already an existing law. There's already a law for it. Now, Orlando PD, they're super awesome, you know what I mean? And they're not going to go around and forcing, you already said you're going to vote for this regardless. A few of you members have already said that there's no way, shape, or form, you've already made your mind up, this is an epidemic, it's so far gone, and there's just there's not thousands of homeless people walking in the streets of Orlando just laying on the sidewalks. You're talking about a few individuals where you've had bad experiences, and I appreciate that. Those things shouldn't happen to you. You're a citizen as well, you're paying your taxes, you're going along just trying to live your lives. But there's no way that this ordinance, and I love the way Mayor Dyer laughed, because it almost makes me believe that he's the one that has the buddy who owns the private prison system, who needs these people in there. Now, everybody can shake their head and look that way, but when you have a private prison system that's funded by the government, that's shady in itself. But to pass this ordinance, just to be picking up homeless people off the street, who you know they can't pay the fine. If you make it $500 or $50, they can't pay the fine.
Kevin, I happen to agree with you on the private prisons, by the way, but we don't send people to prison on this. It's an ordinance that would be county jail.
I hope that's what happened, how it is.
Madai, can I ask the gentleman, Kevin, can I ask you a question? So in your urban camping, if you were laying in the area and the police officer said you were obstructing the movement of others, and they asked you to move, would you move?
I would 100% move, but how many seconds do I have?
Well, I'm just asking. Have you encountered a situation where you thought that the OPD was targeting you?
No, Orlando Police PD has been, with my interactions with me, 100% fine, and all within the realms. Now, I have been sitting before, and a couple officers have come up to me and said, you can't sit in front of this business because we already have loitering. So, pick my bags up, put them on, and I stand and wait for the bus.
And I think, Mayor, that's consistent with what Chief Smith mentioned. I asked that question, and he said his officers, their experiences, when they ask someone to move, they usually move if there's some issue. So,
And this is the only thing I've questioned. If all these other laws are already on the books, what is this ordinance really about then? Like, there's already all the laws, and you're making fun of me for saying private prisons and housing them, but you're really trying to make these people disappear when it's all they need is help. Like I said, most of them are hardworking people. They're not out here doing drugs or trying to hurt anybody. They're just trying to get some rest and live their lives just like everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Favis, Ophelia Sanchez, Mars Scott.
Hi, thank you. My name is Erin. I live here in Orlando, and I've lived here for about 10 years now. I feel like it's almost kind of ridiculous that I have to be here today because there are so many things we could be doing for our community members and spending our time and spending our money on, but instead we're trying to codify something that, for one, we've all clearly discussed here today already exists, and two, just further criminalizes a houseless problem that the city has failed to face, honestly. I had like a more formal statement here to talk about, but honestly, to say that we are protecting pedestrians and making the city safer, we are already not a pedestrian or bike city. That is just not something we are. We are always by car. We have a lack of great public transit that people can't use. So you tell people move, you have to go somewhere. And yes, we have very lovely people like Kevin who will move, but for the most part, where would you like them to go? You don't want them on your bench. You don't want them in front of a business. You don't want them at the park. You don't want them in any of your public areas.
But that's not what this ordinance says.
This ordinance would stop people who are quote-unquote obstructing traffic intentionally, obstructing pedestrian traffic intentionally. Who is to decide what intention is? The cops? Because by the time they decide what intention is, someone has already either been arrested, somebody is already having to now deal with a fine. Someone might not have the money to get out of jail. So you're leaving a lot of vague language for a city that, one, is already not very pedestrian friendly. Like, you could go back and look into your city planning and reorganize that a little bit better. Maybe actually take some pointers from your constituents, who you all have, for the most part, other than Commissioner Ortiz and Burns, have been looking away, as most of our constituents here have been speaking to you about something they're extremely concerned about. And I think that's so disrespectful. I've watched the cops in this here roll their eyes as people have been speaking. So that should already show you the kinds of intent that these people are going to put behind this ordinance. So I don't understand why, when you could hold off on it, revise some things, talk to maybe some of the folks who are sitting in this room today about what would work better for them, you feel the need you have to swiftly pass this ordinance because it is just so urgent when you already have so many other laws on the books and you already have so many people in your prisons. So that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Ophelia Sanchez, Mars Scott, Jacob Muldoon.
Yes, I'm here, City Council. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ophelia and I live on East Church Street in District 4. Like many, I'm here today to speak against Ordinance 2023-55. Being that I live in the heart of downtown, as a woman, I too have a personal anecdote related to our houseless neighbors. I have been housing insecure in the city before, but right now I am currently fortunate to live in a safe and walkable neighborhood while living in community with many of our houseless neighbors in and around my home. I regularly walk and bike around at night and see my houseless neighbors regularly at all hours and never once feel unsafe. Until, of course, it comes to the many, many closed sidewalks I encounter in my commutes, mostly because of construction, with no really adequate other alternative ways to get around major thoroughfares like Colonial. This ordinance jeopardizes the well-being of my homeless neighbors. It perpetuates their criminalization and it overlooks the root causes of the issue that's impacting them. I know that this has been stated again and again, but I'm going to repeat it so that you can really grasp the gravity of these numbers, right? The statistic released in May 2023 by the Homeless Service Network stating that between 2022 and 2023, homelessness in Central Florida has increased by 38%. 38%. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, homelessness has risen 75% in Central Florida. I need you all to understand how serious the situation is. Can you begin to understand how many people that is? If this is the number of people who are considered homeless, right, can you imagine how many people are a missed paycheck away from this being their reality? And rather than put money into social services to alleviate some of this burden for your constituents, people like Kevin, regular folks, we are using it to fund the further harassment of folks who have nothing. This money will go toward further unnecessary interactions with people, leading to unpayable fines and potential incarceration. Expanding on the issue of unnecessary fines and incarceration and interactions with police, this ordinance seeks to expand the definition of disorderly conduct, something that cannot only be used against our houseless neighbors, as we've stated again and again, but against any folks who seek to peaceably assemble on sidewalks. This would make it even easier for the police to brutalize and arrest the families, old folks, and again, any of your constituents who show up to many of the protests, marches, or rallies around our city beautiful. Not everything is permitted, and we are always allowed to protest on public sidewalks. But how long until this ordinance is used as an excuse to disallow even that? Please, City Council members, I urge you to really listen to our concerns and to vote no on ordinance number 2023-55. Thank you for your time.
Mars Scott, Jacob Muldoon, Franklin Perez. Mars Scott? No? Jacob Muldoon?
Hi. Hi, Jacob Muldoon, 4801 Cypress Woods. I'm here representing Orlando for gender equality. First, I just want to finish what Councilperson Ortiz was saying about the actual language of it. So at least the way I read it, there's a second clause. The first clause has nothing to say about being asked. That's in the second one, it says, or who after being ordered by law enforcement. So in the first clause, it just is talking about laying down about pedestrians having to take evasive action. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion in the language is, because there's really two clauses in this that you guys are kind of just lumping together. And language is very important when it comes to ordinances. Like we said, obviously I'm against this, but like we said, these ordinances are going to be outlasting the city council. So it may not be what you think, but the language is the language, and that is a second clause, and they're not together. But also, as a representative of a queer rights organization, I take a problem with this because unfortunately, LGBTQ people are oftentimes forced into houselessness. 28% of LGBTQ youth experience houselessness. 1 in 5 transgender individuals express experiencing houselessness. And with our legislative session increasingly targeting these communities, this makes it only worse for these communities. So for a city that says they're progressive, for a city that says they're standing for LGBTQ rights, we have to stand not only for LGBTQ rights when it comes to marriage, but when it comes to economic inequality, when it comes to homes, when it comes to the rights of being an actual human. And like I said, the vague language can also be used to stifle freedom of speech. Needing a permit to speak is not freedom of speech in assembly, and saying that, oh, well, they won't harass you if you have a permit, that's not freedom of speech. So OGE opposes this ordinance with the choir of organizations condemning this as well. We need services and funds, not an increase in violence and repression. And I think I just want to finally end this, since we've been talking about MLK Jr. Before MLK Jr.'s assassination, he was not only engaging in civil disobedience, he was organizing poor people. So to invoke his name while also trying to attack the poor people of our community, I think is very, very disgraceful. Thank you.
Okay, Franklin Perez, Joe Melendez, Catherine Mullally.
Hi, this is Franklin Perez. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Franklin Perez, and I live in Seminole County, Florida. I would like the Orlando City Council to vote no on ordinance number 2023-55 relating to disorderly conduct. Based on the proposed language, housing advocates, and community activists worry the ordinance would largely target unsheltered people who often congregate in areas near and around downtown Orlando, at least in part due to centralization of homelessness resources. Community activists who organize food shares and other direct services for the city's homeless population have stated that this ordinance jeopardizes the well-being of our homeless neighbors, perpetuates the criminalization of homelessness, and overlooks the root causes of the issue. Homelessness, more than anything, is a housing problem. It should not be a crime. Martha R., president and CEO of the Homeless Services Network of Central Florida, expressed similar concerns, such as, within the city, it is already illegal to sleep or camp on public property, including in parks and on public benches. And since it's also illegal to trespass on private property, our unsheltered neighbors could find themselves violating the law essentially by merely surviving. Any arrest or fine will only exacerbate the extreme challenges they face in regaining housing. Orlando, after all, has a decades-long history of enacting controversial anti-homeless laws, from a ban on panhandling that was ultimately deemed unconstitutional, the infamous Blue Box Ordinance, to a ban on unpermitted food sharing in city parks that targeted mutual aid groups like Food Not Bombs. The ordinance is also likely unconstitutional, as it likely violates a 2018 U.S. Supreme Court ruling which ruled that people cannot be punished for sitting or sleeping on public property if there are no adequate shelter alternatives available, declaring this a violation of the 8th Amendment prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment. R, with the Homeless Services Network, said that shelters in Orlando are often full. Others may have eligibility requirements that homeless people with complex health needs may not be able to comfortably meet. This is also a potential for people to have their First Amendment freedom of speech to be violated with this ordinance for merely protesting peacefully. Please vote no on this cruel and inhumane ordinance. All it does is criminalize homelessness and infringe on our free speech rights. Thank you.
Joe Melendez, Catherine Mullally, Roger Whedon.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to our commissioners and our mayor for being sworn in this morning. And I want to say thank you to Commissioner Ortiz for trying to do something about this initiative. I understand the issue of safety. However, I do also understand that we cannot imprison our homeless population. One of the things that we're seeing right now is there's a lot of empty buildings out there that could be used to house the homeless. Why aren't we creating incentives for these business owners to decide to shelter these homeless population? We could be doing more. Unfortunately, I don't think we're doing enough. I understand we're still trying our best to do something about this homelessness issue. But like I said, more can be done and more should be done. Why not create a committee to create incentives for these businesses to decide to bring shelter to the homeless community instead of throwing them in jail? Thank you for the time to speak. I ask you to please vote no on this 2023 homelessness bill. God bless you.
Catherine Mullally, Roger Whedon, Isla Carter.
Hi, my name is Catherine Mullally. I don't want to disclose my address. I find it appalling that in a city where rent is going up and wages are staying the same, in a city that grossly misuses taxpayer dollars for something as unproductive as a drone light show, in a city where the homeless population has increased by 38% in the last year alone, that the city of Orlando would introduce an ordinance such as this that would have severe implications for the most vulnerable of our community. Amidst one of the worst housing crises in the country, your solution is to throw money at two organizations that have voiced disdain for the very people that they claim to help and care for, instead of listening to what the people who actually live in the community tell you that they need. Your solutions are to criminalize the homeless, to fine them $500, which you know they don't have, or to lock them up for 60 days, putting them in a cycle of debt and perpetual punishment. You would rather hide away our homeless population. You would choose to make them be unseen so you will not have to be faced with your own failures as a city. Time and time again, the City of Orlando and its police department, along with the state of Florida, have proven that they are willing to do everything in their ability to further silence our First Amendment rights. So it doesn't come as a surprise that the language of this bill would also solve your problem of unwanted civil discourse that is happening on our streets, especially in a city that is known to revoke protest permits at the last minute. I've been a citizen of the greater Orlando area for my entire life, and I have witnessed the collective failure of this city and the surrounding ones to enact any meaningful change that would benefit its citizens. Instead, I've seen the gross mismanagement of city funds that could go to fixing our infrastructure, expanding our public transportation, or creating more public services. I urge you to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
Ms. Mullally, just as a matter of course, do you happen to know what we did with our ARPA funding, $68 million that came from the federal government?
Sorry, can you say the question again?
You apparently have a issue with how we've spent the money that we have received.
Yeah.
And so you must be familiar with how we spent the $68 million in ARPA funding we got from the federal government, right?
I am.
And could you tell me what it is?
Yes, you went to 2 organizations. One that was a church. I was here for the last meeting where both these organizations came up to speak, and then one was another mental health service.
Actually, we put it 100% into homeless services. So I was sure you didn't know that.
Okay.
Okay, Roger Weed and then Isla Carter.
Good afternoon. I am Roger Weed. I'm a local lawyer here for 40-something years, practicing criminal defense. I was listening to the references and the prayers involving Martin Luther King. I said, well, what did Martin Luther King have to say about homeless people? So I went on my phone, like people do these days, and found his speech in 1964 to the his Nobel Peace Prize address upon winning that award. He said, the second evil which plagues the modern world is that of poverty. Almost 2/3 of people go to bed hungry every night. They're undernourished, ill-housed, shabbily clad. Many have no houses or beds to sleep in. Their only beds are the sidewalks of the cities and the villages in which they live. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we have the resources to get rid of it. Rich nations must use the resources to develop the underdeveloped, school the unschooled, feed the hungry. Ultimately, a great nation is a passionate nation. No individual or nation can be great if it does not have a concern for the least of these. I share the concerns of the individuals over here and the observations about Martin Luther King. He's not a sanitized person. He was a radical. He came out against the Vietnam War. His last thing was about the Poor People's Campaign. Initially, I saw this as the Don't Say Homeless ordinance. But I was noticing here today that the only people speaking are opponents. There's no proponents here other than Ms. Sheehan and Ms. Hill, based on their individual issues with people in their community. You know, this should not be called the Sheehan bill or ordinance because she has a problem with intoxicated people downtown, which is going to be there every single night on the sidewalks. And Ms. Hill, you have people sleeping across the street from you. Those are the least of the least. And Mayor Dyer, you talk about, well, this is not going to affect protests because permitted people will not be impacted. But I've been on City Hall property many a times when groups have marched down to Lake Eola and without permits and under this statute because they could be arrested. And Mr. Ortiz, you seem to be the most reasonable person here today talking about law enforcement and how they should deal with these situations. But I can tell you, I'm with the National Lawyers Guild, having represented many people during the George Floyd protest and back during Occupy Orlando, that unfortunately law enforcement can use statutes like this as a pretextual reason for arresting people. And people that are protesting and walking down sidewalks under this ordinance could be arrested by law enforcement that have an offense to what they're protesting about, which could be police misconduct. But I think it is important to note there are no proponents here today other than Ms. Hill and Ms. Sheehan because of their personal experience with homeless people or with people that are intoxicated. I'm a lawyer. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have because there are issues with this ordinance that Mr. Ortiz brought up with about vagueness. Mr. Burns, you talked about that the police have to give a warning. Well, they don't. They can arrest somebody based on the first part of this statute.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for your testimony.
Okay, anybody have any questions for a lawyer in this case?
No, Attorney Wilder, I don't have a question, but I do want to say this. I'm not legislating from my own personal experience. I just shared something. This is coming from most of my constituents and business owners. My point of view why I'm voting for this ordinance is because I have gone throughout District 5, which encompasses all of downtown Orlando, Paramore, most of the west side of Orlando. Businesses have been impacted tremendously due to encampments on the sidewalks, children and parents afraid to come outside at night because of many of the violent issues that's happening with and I agree. I'm a nurse prior to becoming a commissioner for well over 25 years to getting here. That was almost 11 years ago. I took care of the indigent. I come from Paramore, which wasn't born wealthy or any of those things. So I'm very compassionate, but I'm also sympathetic to businesses that are going out of business in the Paramore area, my district, because they feel like the sidewalks are being blocked and it's unsafe and patrons aren't coming anymore. Children that can't go in the evening time and ride their bikes after school because the sidewalks are blocked. Seniors that are truly afraid because their sidewalks are blocked outside of their neighborhood. So it's great. I appreciate the input from outside of my area. The mayor, the staff, Lisa Pertelli, we have gone here throughout the last 2 months when we were putting some more funding, $6 million in place to help with the day center for those experiencing homelessness. And they presented something to myself and this council. It's an action plan. And one of their biggest concerns was encampment and blockage of the sidewalks to where it now has become a safety issue in their neighborhood. It's okay to say you live in Thornton Park and Baldwin Park or wherever
Did you invite them to come speak today?
No, they've already came to speak to council and presented us with affidavit. So I'm just telling you where I'm getting my point of information, so you don't think that this is personal. I just experienced this a couple weeks ago, but we've been working, as Mayor Dyer stated, $56 million is focused primarily this city. Now, I would say go speak with some of the other counties throughout Central Florida that we need collaboration with to help house the homeless, to help with night centers, to help with day centers. But this city, under this mayor's leadership and this council leadership, put millions and millions of dollars into the plight of homelessness and making sure that we're treating them in a humane way. Right here in the center, the hub of downtown Paramore. But we also have to be mindful that there are citizens and business owners that are being impacted also. So what do we do? And it's not just about homelessness, it's about safety. And every citizen, regardless if they're experiencing homelessness or they're not working 9 to 5, or if they're infants, deserve a safe thoroughfare and safe neighborhoods. And that's why I'm making this vote. It has nothing to do with Regina Hill. It's the voices of those that can't sit on this day off that has sent me.
Where are these people? Ilea Carter.
I just want to let those folks know the National Lawyers Guild is here to represent people. The ACLU is here to challenge these things. The city of Ocala just spent over $500,000 dealing with a statute like this.
Hi, my name is Ilya Carter. I have lived in Orlando my whole life, and I'm here to speak in opposition to Ordinance 2023-55. I want to start by saying that the suggestion that this is not targeting unhoused people is ludicrous. The language around whether someone is intentionally blocking the road only serves to criminalize people who are forced to live on sidewalks because they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't want to be there, and there are no multimillionaires sleeping on the streets, as Member Hill suggested. To vote yes on Ordinance 2023-55 is to prioritize your own comfort over unhoused people's safety and dignity. It would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you would rather have unhoused people forcibly removed from your line of sight than confront the fact that the government you're a part of leaves families to starve on the streets. Unhoused people are members of this community who you should be representing as much as you represent anyone else, and yet you've decided to give cops even more opportunity to harass people who are just trying to get by. This ordinance is purposely vague so as to maximize the brutality inflicted upon unhoused people and community members trying to help them. It's absolutely abhorrent, and I'm not sure how someone can vote in favor of it and still sleep at night. Speaking of which, Member Hill, you mentioned being afraid to sleep at night, and I'm very sorry that happened to you. With that experience in mind, do you think unhoused people aren't afraid to sleep at night? Do you think cops having free rein to displace them doesn't put them in danger? Member Sheehan, you mentioned feeling afraid walking home at night.
Everybody think that it's funny over there that I had someone invade my house that was mentally ill and homeless with a knife to kill me, that could have killed me and my grandson. You're very insensitive while you're asking me to be sensitive. But go ahead.
Okay, I would like my time to be reset to where it was before. I don't think we're laughing at that happening to you. I think it's just quite ironic that you're using that to justify putting more people in danger. Member Sheehan, you mentioned feeling afraid to walk home at night, which I'm sure every woman in here can empathize with. Unhoused women are particularly vulnerable to harassment and assault, including at the hands of cops. Since you clearly care about women, do you think that unhoused women are made safer by this ordinance? Do you think that unhoused women being forcibly removed from any semblance of shelter they've managed to find and possibly becoming incarcerated, do you think that makes women safer? People sleeping on the streets should make you uncomfortable because human beings don't deserve that. It should make you afraid because any one of us in this room could end up homeless at any time. And it should wreck your conscience for the rest of your life if you vote in favor of this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I've talked to several people. Let me make sure that we're on the same page as what I understand. Those who are loitering, those who are acting in a civil disobedient manner, those who are not licensed, we have ordinance for those today, and there's no change from what we can do today, as I understand it. Where we have a challenge is that there are groups of people who occupy public space with essentially the intent to intimidate others. That's not those who do protest. That's not those who do other things that we can protect. And it tends to be, unfortunately, those who happen to have alcohol in their system. I see this as a good opportunity for us to address the intent of people getting together. Cops have a challenge; they can only really address behavior. So, if disorderly contact is the issue, they can only address disorderly contact. But if the idea is that people can't walk on a sidewalk, I think that we have the ability to say, y'all need to clear the way. If you don't clear the way, we need to make sure you're on public space. That's not public protest. That's not the issues that have been raised so far today. I'm in favor of this. I think we're going to move forward on it. But I think that we ought to see some, see if we can see some responses back in the next 6 months to a year to see if we've had some real, genuine success with it, because I think that there may be other things that we may need to or can look to address. But there's no reason why anybody can't walk down a sidewalk in today. Now, the other thing that concerns me is some of those some comments that we have implied or heard. If somebody is intentionally trying to block you on a public thoroughfare, I don't believe that is fair. You know, we have the right of freedom of speech until the Supreme Court said you can't scream fire in a crowded theater. So our freedom of speech is only limited to how it's infringed on somebody else. So now you have the same issue here. Freedom to assemble is only limited to how it infringes on somebody else's ability to assemble. And so I think this is a good opportunity for us to be able to address intent, especially in the downtown corridor. And I'd like to see us try it. I'd like to see us see a report back in the next 6 months or so to see how it's enforced and see if we're really having some success with it. If we're not, then we can try to address in a different perspective. But this is not intended to go after homeless. It's not intended to go after people who are sleeping on the sidewalk. Unless they barricade the sidewalk and intentionally decide that they don't want people to pass. And if that's the case, then frankly, no offense, if I did it for 25 years, I'd put those people in jail. If the idea is that you're going to block the sidewalk and not let people pass, you don't have a right to do that any more than you have the right to yell fire in a crowded, yes, exactly. So the intent here really is to look at the intent of people gathering without a permit on a sidewalk that has become dangerous to the thousands of people that gather here, especially on weekends. So with that, Mayor, I'm in favor of this, and I'd like to see if we can see some report back in the next 3 to 6 months to see maybe we can reclassify these in terms of how we're filing them, and we can get a chance to see with the success.
We can certainly do that, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. You know, and I agree with some of the things that Commissioner Stewart mentioned, but my concern is that there's, as we were hearing testimony, I continue to read through this ordinance, and there is a lot of ambiguity. I think that when I made the statement about the person having to be ordered to be moved by the law enforcement, the gentleman who spoke, Jacob, I believe was correct that there's 2 clauses. And so I would like to see some language change that would make it less ambiguous and really spell out what it means, because, you know, even I think if we added any person after being ordered to move by law enforcement officers at the beginning of 43.06, I think we start to get closer to it being clearer of what the intent of this ordinance is. So right now I cannot vote for this ordinance because I believe it does have a level of ambiguity that I'm not comfortable with at this time.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Mayor, when I think of this ordinance, I think of my young daughter being downtown and one of this person who have drank too much becomes a bully and blocks a female from driving or walking by and gets all nasty or whatnot. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm not thinking about homeless people, because most homeless people, like he was describing, when you said, sir, can you move or whatnot, most people, they move. So there's no intention there. We're not going to go after these people. Nobody is, I don't know why this has become a homeless issue, because we are not going after homeless. We have plenty of issues downtown. We're looking for the safety of our people downtown so people can come into downtown and have fun. But there's some bullies out there, and I think you guys know that. I think there's people out there that they don't know how to control their drinking, and they become obnoxious, and then they start playing games with other people. And I think that's when police officers have to come in and do what they have to do.
Yeah, we gave you each your 3 minutes that wanted it, so now's time for discussion among commissioners.
The other thing, and I feel truly sad that there's such a lack of trust with law enforcement, as if everybody in law enforcement was bad. I don't know if this is because of bad experiences that you guys have had personally or whatnot, but that's not the case. That's not the case. And that's why we also have a system to police that. And I think you need to, it should be part of this, and we appreciate, by the way, I gotta say this, I appreciate you coming over and expressing your opinions about this, because we may have something here. Earlier, I talked about possibility of the way this is worded, okay? To maybe, instead of just saying, maybe we should be more specific in a sense, such a manner as to intentionally block passage by another person or block the passage to require another person to take evasive action to avoid physical contact. Maybe add a few more words that would be more specific, so you guys would understand. And I don't know if the attorney can do something like this. It's just a matter of repeating or rewording some of these things. So, because to tell you the truth, I mean, and then again, I don't fault you. I work in law enforcement for many years, so I see it with a different perspective, but I can understand where you're coming from.
No, settle, you guys have had your opportunity for public testimony. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave if you keep shouting from the audience.
So what I'm saying is, and then again, I'm gonna ask for our attorney to see if there's something that he can come, sir.
You need to leave.
There's no need for this, please.
You need to leave.
There's no need for this, please. There's no need for this, please. Let's talk to each other. And this is great. You know, you guys are talking, and this is what we're here for, to listen to you. And we're gonna work, you know. But let us, if the attorney can come up, and maybe there's a way of us.
When we have to read it again, when we have to bring it back and read.
No, an amendment can be made as we speak. No, I don't think, Mayor. If there was something that he could tweak
Well,
for the better understanding.
Commissioner, I think I would be more comfortable not amending it at the table with some verbal. Let this go through. If we have issues with it, I'll take Commissioner Stewart's recommendation. We come back in 6 months, then revisit it.
But all I'm asking, I think the attorney, because I saw him making some motion, I think he understands what I'm asking, is just to add a word so he would be more specific in the sense of.
Okay, let's take a shot at that.
To answer the commissioner's question, the language is really already there, and to address some of
It
the
is.
vagueness concerns, this specific new language that's being proposed to be added to the ordinance is patterned directly on a City of Seattle ordinance that uses identical language that, when challenged for on grounds of constitutional vagueness and overbreadth, the courts upheld. So the specific language has survived challenge before. This first clause that's being added, that intent element applies to both portions of the disjunctive phrase. So they have to intentionally block another person's passage or intentionally cause that person to take evasive action. So that intent applies to the entirety of the first clause that's being added.
I get it. I do understand it. I just want to make it, I want to dilute it in a way where our community can understand. That's all I'm asking. As I said, and I do get it. Maybe we need to just sit down and have a conversation. I can probably explain it to you, to where you guys, and I'll be more than happy to sit down. Because I think the big thing is I think you guys are misunderstanding the intent of this ordinance. And I would love to sit down, and I think the attorney would do, to explain it to you, to where you guys will be.
I think that'll work, Commissioner. We'll put you in charge of that.
I'll do. I'll sit down with you guys.
Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, 6-1 passes. Okay, we are on, Madam Clerk, number 6, ordinances on second reading.
Ordinance number 2023-56, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending Chapter 62 Orlando City Code to modify the Virginia Drive Special Plan, providing legislative findings and for severability, codification, corrections,
Hold on,
governor's
Madam
error.
Clerk, let's just wait till they clear the... Okay, continue, please.
Ordinance number 2023-56, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending Chapter 62 Orlando City Code to modify the Virginia Drive Special Plan, providing legislative findings and for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's error, and an effective date.
Commissioner Stewart asleep at the wheel.
I'll move to adopt.
He's not in favor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, then it was motioned by the Commissioner from District 1, and the second came from the Commissioner of District 2. Madam Clerk, anybody that
speaker.
wants to testify on this matter?
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and so,
No.
okay, 5-2. It passes. Ordinance's first read, number 1.
Ordinance number 2023-51, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending Chapter 66 of the Land
Forgot you
Development
worked for
Code
that, Commissioner.
entitled Definitions
Forgot you
by
worked for
amending the definition of substantial enlargement and providing for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's error, and an effective date.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Madam Clerk?
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, number 2.
Ordinance number 2024-1, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to signs, amending Chapter 62, Part 3 Land Development Code entitled Appearance Review Standards, amending Chapter 62, Part 4 Land Development Code entitled Specially Planned Areas, amending Chapter 64, Part 1 Land Development Code entitled Introduction and General Requirements, amending Chapter 64, Part 2C Land Development Code entitled Specific On-Site Signs, amending Chapter 64, Part 7 Land Development Code entitled Temporary Signs, amending Chapter 64, Part 8 Land Development Code entitled Special Sign Districts, providing for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's error, and an effective date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Madam Clerk?
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And number 3.
Ordinance number 2024-2, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending provisions of the Land Development Code to update the available bonuses for low and very low income housing developments, providing legislative findings and for severability, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Madam Clerk?
No speakers, Mayor.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and so the motion carries. That's the end of our formal agenda. Ed, could you get us ready for general appearance?